Hey guys, how's it going? Welcome back to the Glue Guys podcast, episode 4. Now let's first address the elephant in the room, okay? You are right, I did get a haircut, alright? But the other elephant in the room, obviously, is that we did not record last week. I'll take like 87% of the blame for that, alright? I was getting into our preseason for, the polo that Chad's wearing right now. We're getting into preseason for soccer. Had a lot of stuff going on. No excuse, though, okay? So we're going to have, hopefully, an episode today that will make up for both of those. Not in length, okay? We're kind of working through that, as host. I feel like I should be, better at streamlining the episodes. Chad, why don't you let the people know how you're doing today?
Yeah, really excited. Like Ethan said, no episode last week. But, with the topics that we actually have laid out, I think I'm not going to say better that we didn't put out an episode, but, it gives us more data points. More data points gives us more chance to confirm, kind of our thoughts or maybe go against them. But I won't tease too far. Let's just get into it.
Yeah, we've got quality over quantity this week. So what we're going to be getting into today are 3 topics. Are going to be early overreactions from the Premier League. All right, I had about a match day and a half. Obviously there's games going on today. Liverpool is about to kick off, or they kicked off at 8.
No, that's the 11:30. Liverpool Brentford's the 11:30. Yeah. We got Newcastle Bournemouth and then Wolves Chelsea at 9.
9, yeah. And then we have a college football topic, all right, kind of taking a peek at the state of college football. And then we have some soccer and NBA comparisons, all right, so very, very interesting stuff. I'm excited to get into it. My first early overreaction for the Premier League, and I wanted to go bold with these. I really wanted to not just say something that's like, oh, overreaction. Arsenal's pretty
Arsenal
good.
Are good.
Yeah, exactly. Like something like that. Like no one.
That
cares
Holland
about
fella
that.
might score a goal or two.
Yeah, I mean, them going down 1-0 was high comedy, but them scoring 3 goals in about 190 seconds. That was that was nice. So my first overreaction is Everton just start going down. Period. Point blank. End of story. Like they are right now down because I think we saw with Burnley as well that the Dyche system does work well for them, whatever club he's at, staying up. And he did it for multiple years at Burnley, and now he's done it for a couple of years at Everton. But what, Chad, was one of the key, like probably the number one key that I said to if you want to stay up in the Premier League, you have to do X. What is it?
Can't give up goals.
You
cannot
can't
give up goals.
Concede. And right now, they are rock bottom of the league with a negative 7 goal difference after losing their opening day game at home 3-0 against Brighton, which included a red card. And then they lost 4-0 away yesterday to Spurs, a Spurs team which isn't particularly exceptional. All right, I mean, definitely a good team, but I'm more saying like it's not like they lost to City 4-0 away, which you would kind of shrug your shoulders at and be like, I mean, that shit happens sometimes.
Yeah.
So Everton to me are already down because to me, again, I feel like the Dyche system works well, but once it breaks down, it really, really breaks down, and I could easily see them around like December, January time trying to pivot to another system, and then it kind of gets into a muddle of not winning games for about 10 games in a row, heads go down, you're conceding a bunch of goals, and then you're basically down by March.
Yeah. And look, I'll be honest with you. This was, when we were doing our marathon preseason preview, that was kind of one of the few disagreements we had is kind of Everton. I thought they were going to be, a lot better. I might have even said mid-table or, thereabout. But, I mean, from what we've seen through 2 games, I can't disagree with anything that you've said. They've looked horrible. Like you said, the defense, which is the thing that a Dyche team kind of hangs their hat on, and really, they were a really good defense last year. I think
really staunch defense last year.
They were like 4th or 5th for expected goals in the Prem. So, I mean, the defense was not a problem last year. But this year, I'll give you a couple things that I'm seeing. One, I just think Keane is just... You can't play Keane-Tarkovsky together as a center back pairing. No. Tarkovsky, while I think he's fine in a compact back four, when he's the guy who kind of has to drift out into wide areas, because Keane's just immobile as hell. I mean Dante thinks that dude's slow. So that's a that's a problem. But I do think that the maybe saving grace is, eventually Tarkovsky will come back from this injury that he has. Granted, the point you're making, will it be too late already? If it's maybe another month or so, I'm not sure how severe the injury is. So if it's another month or two and they're already, sitting on less than 10 points, at 7 or 8 games into the season, like it's obviously going to be problems. The other thing is, I think Jake O'Brien, they're signing from Lyon, another center back. I feel like at some point he's going to have a part to play. Now, could that be him coming in and then playing almost like a back 3.5 with, Braithwaite, who has a lot of versatility, possibly deputizing at right back, and then O'Brien, Tarkovsky, center back. I think that would solidify the defense more, especially with a team that has a flying left back like Mikalenko, or at least how he tries to be. But yeah, if you're an Everton fan right now, you can't feel good. You can't feel good. The midfield, it's weird. Garner hasn't featured at all yet this season. You've seen him playing the midfield three. I think Garner's injured. They're playing the midfield three of Decore, Gay, and I don't even know, like some 18-year-old kid or 19-year-old kid.
Which
number
is a
42.
mix of washed, inexperienced,
yeah, exactly,
bad profiles together.
And it's weird, another one of those disagreeing points that we had was Amadou Onana, where I was saying, like, hey, when Everton looked really good in the back half of last season, he wasn't even getting into the team. It was the three guys that I just mentioned playing. But, man, it looks like a big miss just because they don't have that one person who's kind of eating up ground in the midfield. Decore, I feel like, can be that attacking, most advanced guy. But Gay's mobility just is not there anymore. And to not have a third guy who's, like you said, experienced and knows where to go. Because, this other guy, number 42, I'm going to just keep calling him, he's mobile. He gets up and down, but he just doesn't know what positions to be in. And look, it's obviously not just on him, but all these things compiled together are leading to, like you said, 7 goals allowed, none scored. The worst differential in the league.
I think a lot can be said about having those powerful midfielders allowing you a new way to play out of the back. Because Everton probably don't have the quality to play out of the back.
Yeah,
but
absolutely.
You saw yesterday with with Aston Villa against Arsenal. Villa wasn't really even building too well out of the back. I mean, they were keeping it well, but then they would just give it to Morgan Rogers and Amadou Onana, and then they would just literally barrel through for about 50 yards. And then that's how they create scoring opportunities. It wasn't it wasn't them kicking it long, but it also wasn't them playing it short. It was just shrug off Odegaard, and then shrug off Rice, and then shrug off Partey, and then just keep running. And then that's how they created a decent amount of their chances, is just by having guys like that. And I'm not saying Everton would be as good as Villa if Onana was still there, but it just gives them another option to build up, to just be like, hey, we're just going to give it to you. You're going to get us out. And the defense is always going to, their team, the opposition's always going to have to keep that in the back of their mind, being like, oh, shoot, we don't want Amadou Onana running out our back line time and time again. We have to fix this. We can't send as many numbers. We have to be more organized, things like that. But for right now, it looks like Everton are just so far gone.
Yeah, and a lot of that has to do also with being able to win second balls in the middle of the field, which I thought was something that Everton were really great at last year, and that just goes to Onana. I thought Gardner was really good at that as well. So, like we said, I don't want to write them off completely until I see them fully healthy. But if we're talking about guys like James Gardner and Tarkovsky or Braithwaite coming back to make your season, that's already a difficult position to be in. So, couldn't agree more. Looks like I'm going to end up taking the L on that one.
So, do you have an overreaction for us, or do you want to hear my next one?
Yeah, I want to kind of dip into one that you just talked about, or that you kind of hinted to. I think Morgan Rogers really has a chance to just... I mean, I'm not sitting here saying he's going to be in that top level of guys this season, but he has a chance to be a budding star in the league. I mean, the physicality, that was one of the biggest things that stood out in that Villa-Arsenal game, and we can talk about that, for a minute, just because I'm sure that led to some thought, or you have at least some thoughts on that one. But the athleticism that Villa was playing with, I think, was just so much higher than what they were at last year. And that was the one thing, I wasn't as high on them going into the season, and I'm not now saying now they'll all of a sudden be great, but that was the one thing that stood out to me through 2 games for them is the overall athleticism of the team. When you bring Onana into the base of midfield, he's partnering Tielemans, who we know isn't the most mobile guy, but like we've talked about, or really like you said, when Onana is just destroying all over up and down the pitch, and then Rodgers is able to get back and defend as well, and then he's just bouncing off guys like he's Derrick Henry 5 years ago. It's a dangerous team.
Yeah, and again,
it's a dangerous midfield combination.
Not to toot my own horn again, but I did kind of in my head in my preseason preview kind of concoct a scenario in which Tielemans would be that deep lying playmaker with just surrounded by athleticism and energy. And we saw that early. John McGinn was okay at it in the first half. He wasn't great, but Onana was all over the place. And then Morgan Rodgers, once he started playing more centrally, he was really picking up the ball. Wasn't even picking it up in dangerous areas, but he was just making the areas dangerous with his running.
I was just saying driving.
Yeah, and on the commentary, they likened him to Jude Bellingham, which is just funny because Jude Bellingham's like 21, and now he's like an archetype for a world-class player. But they were like, he said the commentary team, and they were spot on. They were like, I'm not saying he's Jude Bellingham, but like this is the stuff that Jude Bellingham does that makes him elite. And like a ball, like a midfielder that's good driving with the ball at their feet is really, really hard to find. That's technically good enough. And I don't know if Morgan Rodgers is going to be a central player long term. Maybe that he can be like a Joe Linton, like a better version of Joe Linton in the future. But yeah, that Villa team, they're just scary. And as an Arsenal fan, we've kind of become used to not conceding goals, but it just felt like always on the edge of our seat, like, man, we could concede here. They're being dangerous here. They're whatever here. So that Villa team, I still, very, very big believer in them and what Unai Emery has going on.
Well, I mean, let's just call a spade a spade. If Ollie Watkins had remembered that the season's already started, you guys give up probably at least 2 goals in that game. I mean, the one clear-cut chance
where he just misses the target.
Yeah, just missed it completely. And then obviously, the Raya stop, I think, is more of a credit to Raya than it is an indictment on Watkins. But that was a goal last season that he's just scoring. Whatever it is, he's just scoring that. Not even making it a 50-50. I'll be honest, Villa to me, and I know it's kind of weird because, by the time a striker comes on late in the second half, it's kind of a different game. But Villa have looked better with Duran up front.
He's really good.
Games. Yeah, and he's a guy who, look, before the season, he was getting, those huge links to Chelsea or whoever, and it was paying 30, 40 million, and it's just, the Elliot Anderson jokes start coming up, and all the list of guys who it's like, oh, Omari Kellyman's never kicked a ball, yet somehow he's going for 25. Duran was kind of in that group, and then you look at him through 2 games, and it's like, maybe there was something legitimate to the links. I mean, he's really. He brings that athleticism too, I think, and he has a pressing ability with him, and then he just has a presence in the box. I really like what he brings to the side. So.
Yeah, and I saw him play a bit for Colombia, and he looked decent then. I actually saw him play against the United States at FedEx, your favorite stadium. So. And he's just imposing. He really is. And it's a difficult thing to deal with. I think he's only 20 years old or something like that. So
yeah.
Allegedly. But, that's neither here nor there. Second overreaction.
I was just going to say, just to wrap up Villa, kind of, the one thing I think that they need to take it to that next level, they need to get it right back. You don't
like Matty Cash's work?
Well, Matty Cash, I got to say, when he went out in the 13th minute, I was like, this could be a good thing for Villa, truly. Yeah. Because that 18-year-old Nedeljkovic, he came on for some spot minutes in the opener, but I'll tell you, he looked a problem. He was giving Martinelli fits for sure down that left-hand side.
Well, Martinelli's also the worst player in the team, so you got to also factor that in.
It's crazy. It's crazy how that's turned, but I don't want to. I feel like we're going to talk about Arsenal at some point, so I don't want to step on it too early.
All right, so my next overreaction, I think I'm only going to go with 2. Again, I'm trying to streamline this a little bit more, but Brighton's going to finish in a European place.
Yeah,
and
that's one I feel good about. I feel good about.
So a lot of times, this is why it's funny when we talk about certain things with clubs, especially when we talk about big clubs. A lot of times people think big clubs get over criticized. I actually think they get under criticized at times because people just assume things are going to get smoothed over because they're a big club. So I told you my concerns again in the preseason with United, with their transfer business, and with people were saying they played well in the Community Shield, but I was like, I don't know, I still see problems. And now they've come out and they've played 2 pretty poor games. Of course, they got the win on opening night against Fulham, but then they came out against Brighton and they looked very, very poor. And I just loved what Brighton was doing. Like, Brighton was building well, they were defending well. It really never seemed. Again, I know Højlund's not fit. I know Xerxes is not 100% fit to be able to play the whole match and all that stuff, but it just looked like they have just issues. I mean, when they have Dalot at left back and when they have, just these midfields that just, to me, don't really scream, we're going to finish in European place. And Brighton doesn't have those problems. Sorry, I wasn't trying to turn this into United hit piece, but then I more say because people are like, oh, well, United will figure it out, or, this club, after the opening game, it's like, oh, Spurs will figure it out, after they drew Leicester, things like that. It's like, but Brighton already has it figured out in August.
Yep.
So why would we not want to give them the benefit of the doubt and be like, hey, like this? I mean, even when you watch them play, it's like, which Premier League team would not want Mitoma on their team? Which Premier League team would not want, even a Jean-Paul Van Hecke, who I was a critic of last season, and now he's just continued to play well and play well and play well, and now I'm like, he's a really good, legitimate central defender. They have so many players where you look around and it's like, why are these guys not considered to be some of the best, not the best player in the league, but like some of those players where people are like, oh my God, like kind of like in the same way as like Ollie Watkins. It's like, I don't think anyone considers him to be the best player in the league or anywhere near that. But people are like, oh God, they got Watkins. I think Brighton has two or three players.
Every team in the league would want him and would start him 90% of the time.
Exactly, like things like that. And I just think that Brighton has done really, really well with such a young manager as well. I really like what they're doing, and they were one of those teams that smashed Everton. So I don't know if that's technically a good thing or if that's just what's going to happen this year. But I'm impressed by Brighton. I think they're going to finish European place.
Yeah, and the thing that's scary about them is they still have like improvement. Like, I think they're going to improve a lot from the performances that they've had so far this season. Talk about just their injury list. Evan Ferguson's out. Solly Marsh hasn't played a minute for them this season. The midfielder Viefers, he didn't even play in this last game, and I feel like he's a nailed on starter for them when he's fit. And none of those guys have even played at all this season. Also the Kadioglu signing, which I think left back Hinselwood, who's played there the first 2 games, that's been the one spot that's kind of glaringly looked like their weakness so far.
It's like where the goal came from, basically.
Yeah, exactly.
The United goal.
And Kadioglu, when that transfer becomes permanent or official, I guess he'll get minutes there. Purvis Estupinian, when he comes back from injury, granted he's had a lot of problems the 3 years that he's been there, so you're going to have some cover there. But I think this can be a scary squad. I completely agree with you. I think another thing, and I don't just want to say this about all the teams that I think are good, but Brighton's front becoming way more athletic is just underrated. Yes. When you have João Pedro playing in that number 10 spot, and I thought, before the season, I was like, I don't know if he can really have that effect playing at the number 10 versus playing as the striker. But man, he's able to cover a lot of ground. He's able to dribble a lot better than I thought he was able to. He's able to dictate play a lot, in that kind of final third. So when you have him and then Menta at right wing is just, my God. I mean, that dude, the number of young wingers who have just looked good through the first couple of weeks is crazy.
And they're bringing Ndinger off the bench.
Yeah,
who was he was one of the
borderline star for them last year.
Yeah, that's what I mean. He was probably one of their 3 best players last year. Now he's coming off the bench, making a positive impact, getting the assist for that final goal. I mean, again, kind of just speaking about the game specifically, I mean, that freaking disallowed Garnacho goal was probably the funniest thing I've seen so far this season. Yeah. And then seeing the defending for United for the goal, it was just like it was like elementary school stuff where the ball's on the left side of the box and all the United players are defending on one half of the box. I was like, are you guys? This is all off a set piece too.
Yeah,
so it's not
exactly.
like they're got caught on a transition or anything. And Brighton's just able to exploit that stuff. Joao Pedro, he's like, when I watch Mateus Cunha, he's basically what I want Mateus Cunha to be.
That's such a great that makes so much
Like
sense. 'Cause
powerful
exactly right.
runner, isn't quite a 10, but isn't quite a 9. Just loves floating in those areas that defenders don't want to defend in. He's able to pick up the ball and he dribbles well. He finishes better than Mateus Cunha. He has much more of an eye for goals and assists. And Joao Pedro, again, I was one of the people that did not believe in him. I'll freely admit that because I was never impressed with him when he played for Watford. But ever since he got that move, he's just. I mean, Brighton just do this. I mean, they turned Danny Welbeck into a legitimate Premier League striker, which I didn't think was even possible in 2015, much less 2024.
That's the scary part. Like, you look at it and you're like, man, you guys are starting Welbeck and Jason Steele at goalkeeper and striker. And it's like, and you guys look like, and I'll say this, I don't think we're going to talk about Chelsea much, but I'll say that's kind of like it. Brighton is like what Chelsea would want to be, even though Chelsea have 10 times the budget.
Yeah.
Right? It's like you have all the other stuff between the two goals that makes the things that happen at the two goals a whole lot easier. And it makes a lot more sense. But Brighton have stuck to the system, have stuck to their model, and this is like, year 4 or 5 of them kind of playing, not necessarily this way, because I think even in that United game, they were less possession based than they were under De Zerbi, but they were more attacking. They were much more direct, and the young manager was Fabian Hosler, I think is his name. Mm-hmm. Yeah, him coming in, is just kind of slightly tweaked the mentality from being a possession side to just a straight up attacking side. So,
which I will say. I could definitely see them getting hammered at times by 100%. Certain teams. Like, I don't really like
like Spurs, right? Where it's high risk, high reward. When it's going great, you look awesome. But when the right team comes in with the right plan, it's like all of a sudden you're down 3-0 to Palace. Or something like that.
Even when you saw, United at times when they were breaking, you kind of looked up and you're like, oh shoot, they kind of have like a 4-on-3 here with the whole half of the pitch to run at, things like that. If they had a little bit more quality. And they probably could have punished a little bit more. So what was did you have a second overreaction?
I'm really starting to get concerned, and I know it's super early, but I'm a little concerned about Palace.
Boom, that's what I had down. That if I were to say a third one, that's what I had down. Losses against Brentford away on the opening day, then a 2-0 loss yesterday at home against West Ham. A West Ham team which has improved and is a good side, but not
better.
They're basically in the preseason probably thinking they're around the same level as Palace, like fighting to probably get like.
I think West Ham's shooting higher.
I think they're shooting higher, but I think just the way the league is, I don't think West Ham can finish higher than 8th. It's not possible because of the amount of talent that is above them, and I think that Brighton. And Palace, I would think in the preseason, will probably be fighting for those like 11, 10, 9th, 8th, those kind of spots.
Probably put those 4, and then like Newcastle is maybe like slightly above that group. But, you could see figuring it out and being in that same position. So
yes,
the league is well, I don't want to diverge, but Palace, man, I tell you. One, Eze just hasn't looked up to it at all so far through 2 games. I think
ever since he got robbed of that goal, he just has been been doing his own thing.
He had a free kick in the 90th minute where it was like it was already 2-0, but it was like, oh, if you score here, then you can make the last 2-3 minutes interesting.
Right.
It was perfect spot, perfect like literally the training setup for the free kick, and he just skied it 100 yards over the goal, and I was like, that just, look, obviously that doesn't say what type
player
of exactly, but it just has summed up what it's been through the first 2 games for him. I think they rely on him a whole lot. He's really their main creator right now, because they were playing, at least yesterday, they were playing that 3-4-2-1, kind of that Tuchel setup at Chelsea. Whereas almost Edouard and Mateta playing as like split strikers kind of, and then Eze underneath it, which Edouard, I tell you, man, he looked lively for about 10 minutes, but then you watch and you're like, yeah, how is this dude starting for a team which has the aspirations that we just talked about? So that's where, eventually you'll probably see Ismail Assar, hopefully, starting in that position, or even maybe just a three, kind of that new three of Daish Kamada, Eberechi Eze, and then Mateta, which I think is what they're going to end up playing a lot of because their midfield also just looked wide open. Like, I love Adam Wharton. He's amazing on the ball, can dictate play, can do all that stuff, spread the field. But that dude really can't defend.
Yeah, it's hard to find. It's hard to find a system where they can really have all their players on. Like, if they can have a system where they somehow have a midfield with Wharton and Eze, but also have the attackers like Sarr and Kamada.
Well, I gotta ask you, like, am I crazy to think? If you played that front three that I just talked about, Eze, Kamada, and Mateta, then that kind of gives you two guys who, instead of being like wingers, they're really more like advanced kind of 8/10
inside forwards,
yeah, with Kamada and Eze, where they can come back and do some defensive work. Which, then if you're playing Wharton and then, Czech Decore hasn't played yet. Obviously, when he comes back, that's going to be a huge addition because he's able to kind of eat up ground in the midfield. But right now, they're playing like Jefferson Lerma and Jeffrey Schlupp is somehow still getting minutes in the Premier League. But it just looks, the midfield seems very wide open. So, but I feel like if you play those four as kind of like the four midfield-ish type players, then all of a sudden you put some more numbers in there and it can maybe lead to some more success.
Yeah, it just makes it a little bit difficult because then you're really relying on your fullbacks to provide width. And I think Munoz is actually, I kind of like Munoz at right back, and so I think that works on that right side. But Tyreek Mitchell honestly might be the worst technical footballer I've ever seen in my entire life at the top level.
I got to tell you, I saw him put in some decent crosses yesterday. Now, I'm not sitting there saying that he's great, but he put in about 3 really dangerous, really good crosses that I saw. So if he's able to at least do that as a baseline for like a mid-table fullback, like that's fine. We saw Wan-Bissaka come in for West Ham the other day where he's like, at United, it's like he's the worst person on the ball in the history of the world. And granted, he's not great. But then he gets into the West Ham side and it's like, oh, okay, he's competent, in possession for them. Just because it's a different type of team. And I think Mitchell for Palace kind of in that same mode, even though obviously he's playing a wing back instead of just a straight outside back position.
I will say, watching those Palace games about 4 or 5 years ago when it was a very young Tyreek Mitchell and Aaron Wan-Bissaka at fullback, it was literally like what like the 1964 like European Championships final must have looked like. Like, it was just absolutely insanity. Very quickly, if you were to say one prediction from your predictions preseason, if you could change it right now off the top of your head, what would you say? Either a team not getting relegated or a team not challenging for a European place or something like that. Again, these are all overreactions. We acknowledge that. Yeah. So
I would have Everton going down for sure. The only thing is, like, I don't know. Not of the 3 teams that I said were going down, none of them have looked good enough for me to justify
I don't know who would
them staying up.
Yeah.
Like, I still just really feel like Wolves don't have enough this year. So I really feel like that they're still going to go down. Ipswich, we talked about it against City. They looked lively for about 5 minutes, and then City put the game away. But I mean, maybe. And then Southampton, they played against 10 men for 75 minutes and couldn't even get one opportunity. So it's like, I guess I'd switch You know what? Actually, I'm going to double down. I'm going to go bold. I'm not switching any of them. I don't think Everton is the one that worries me, obviously, but I think they have more room to improve from where they're currently at compared to the other bottom 3 that I had.
Quick 1 minute on like just kind of the media, but when are we going to stop pretending that fun keeps you up? Like, all these preseason predictions I saw from these pundits are like, okay, who do you have going down? It's like, well, Southampton, Leicester for sure, and then like Forest. It's like, that's interesting. A team that was playing in League One in 2023, you have them staying up for sure. Okay, why is that? Oh, well, like I think they have a good manager, and I think they played some good stuff last year.
And that's the true reason.
What?
That's the whole reason.
What do you mean? And then, like, you saw their opening day lineup had, like, 7 guys that played their last League One match in it. That, like, came up with... And it's like,
They had one player with Premier League experience on their entire roster.
You can't... Was it Liam Delap?
No, I don't even think... He hasn't played in a Premier League game for City. Or it was one guy who had made a start in the Premier League. I don't even remember who the hell.
And it's just
I
like...
think it was Leif Davis.
Yeah, it's like, what... Like, I don't understand... Because it happens every year. It happened last year with Burnley. It was like, oh, well, Vincent Kompany and his system, and he's not going to compromise for anyone. He's going to have Charlie Taylor flying down the left wing and whipping balls into frickin' Cameron Archer. It's like, what? What's going to happen?
Yeah.
What did you just say?
Exactly.
Did you hear the words and the names you just used? But anyway, so those are a couple of our overreactions, you know, the state of Everton, Palace, Brighton, and then a little bit of Villa talk, all right? If anything, it was just confirmation, all right, only 2 weeks into the season.
Can we just hit on one thing, though? I'm kind of disappointed we haven't brought it up. What have you thought of Arsenal through 2 games? I mean, I don't have to pull that out of you, but come on. We got to do a minute
here's the
on it.
thing that I really, really like about Arsenal so far is I don't think we've been great in either game, but we won both games 2-0. And I think that has been a hallmark of City for years now. Is like you'll watch City games, and me as a City hater, I'll watch City play against like Forest, and I'm like, dude, Forest have been looking good. They're about to get that goal. Something's about to happen. All right, it's like 65th minute. They're making changes. It's okay. Forest still playing well. And then Rodri scores, and then Jack Grealish makes it 2-0 in like 5 minutes. And it's like, okay, well, better luck next week. And it feels like that's kind of what Arsenal have been. It's hard for me to see it from that kind of perspective because I'm a fan, and so I'm like so invested in every touch of the ball, everything. But I don't think we played particularly well on opening day. Still got the 2-0 win. Great goal from Bukayo Saka. All right. 3rd youngest player to 100 Premier League wins, which doesn't count, I think, because he plays for Arsenal.
Okay.
I'm pretty sure.
That's what the rule book said?
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Wayne Rooney, it's impressive when he does it because he played for United, but since Saka plays for Arsenal and Arsenal fans are annoying, that doesn't count. And then yesterday we saw Leandro Trossard, who there's no way that he doesn't start next weekend. He was good. I mean, literally his first touch was a goal, and then a weird Thomas Partey goal that showed just how overrated Emi Martinez is.
I've been on that one for years, so I felt good there.
Yeah, and we didn't play particularly well. Villa were the better team. They controlled the game a lot. Maybe they didn't have the ball a lot as much as they might have wanted, but they didn't. But they weren't really under pressure a lot from Arsenal.
The game went how they would have wanted it to go.
Correct. And then they, like you said, they missed their 2 biggest chances, and we scored our 2 biggest chances, and it was simple as that. And then it's kind of dust your hands off, and then move on. Because last year at the beginning of the season, these were games that were ending in draws, or maybe even ending in a weird loss, like both games against Villa. And I think just getting those 3 points early in the season when you're not fully integrated, not everyone is full. Like Declan Rice doesn't look fully fit. He looks very tired. Bukayo Saka has been good, but he hasn't been what we're going to need him to be if we're going to win the title. And Calafiori still isn't fully integrated in the team. Obviously, Mikel Moreno. I got the there we land for him. So, like, all the things that we're playing well before all the final pieces have been put in place. So, I'm excited for the season, but City are going to win it again, so it doesn't really matter too much.
I got to tell you, I really think the Timber left back insertion just makes them a better team. Like, I know you talked about...
Well, I know it makes us a whole hell of a lot better than when Zinchenko plays there. Or
and the perfect example of that was yesterday. Timber was, as you saw, and anyone that watched saw, when you guys were in possession, Timber was fully inverted into the midfield, kind of forming that double pivot with Partey, really. And there was a time where Arsenal had lost possession, Villa got on the counter, ball wide out to Leon Bailey. And Timber, I thought he was actually just going to get there and win the ball. Didn't end up doing that, but Bailey ended up getting it and going at him. And Timber really held his own in a tough 1v1. And this was late in the second half. I think you guys were already ahead 1-0 by then. and it just kind of showed the difference of like what Timber is versus, like you said, a Zinchenko, a Kivior. And he's just as good on the ball, if not better than those guys. So he looked so comfortable on the ball in possession. That was the thing I always knew he was going to bring to the Premier League, was just he's going to be a good passer no matter what. Like, even if he's not the greatest defender, obviously not really tall enough to be a starting center back, I don't think, for 38 games. And it doesn't have the mindset either. Obviously, Lisandro Martinez is even shorter than him, but I just think his mentality is different than Timber's. But Timber's just so smooth on the ball, so good. I gotta ask you, the Trossard celebration, like, can you give me, like, what was that about? Like, was he pissed he didn't start, or, like, what's the reason for that?
So I kind of was pissed off about it at first. When I saw it, I was just kind of like, screw you, dude, like, play your role. And then I thought about it, and I was like, I mean, he's been consistently better than Martinelli, really, ever since he joined the club. And just every single time Martinelli gets back fit or has, like, a glimpse of something, it's like, oh, okay, cool, now Martinelli can start again. And it's like, why? Yeah. Like, so I get it from his perspective. And I do. I think he was pissed off that he didn't start. I'd be pissed off if I didn't start if I were him. This dude hit 10 in the league last year. And
12 as a sub.
Yeah, and it's like,
which is crazy.
And I don't really understand what more he has to do to start. But the only thing is like, I mean, Mikel had to have had this conversation with him. It's like, dude, do you see the damage you're doing off the bench? Why would you not want to continue to do that? But of course, your ego kicks in. You're like, I'm the best player in this position. I should be starting, which I completely understand it. I don't think it's going to be an issue. And if it does become an issue, then I would have no problem with Gabby Martinelli seeking other opportunities outside of the club, which, like, I'm not a big move on our players, this guy isn't good enough type of guy, but if Gabby Martinelli isn't going to show it, then Trossard, he needs to be playing more and more.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, they looked significantly better once Trossard came on. I felt like for the first 60 minutes of the game, Arsenal's main, like, attacking, like, the thing they wanted to do was just isolate Martinelli against Nedeljkovic. And, like I said earlier, Nedeljkovic was winning that battle. Like, he just was. So I don't know who that says more about. But, yeah, so just last thing on Arsenal, and then we can move on. The Moreno signing, obviously, like you said, we got the there we land. Do you feel like the squad is now as complete as it's going to get? Or do you feel like there's one more signing still in you guys before?
So I don't think there's going to be a new signing, but I think a right winger would really, really be huge. Okay. I really do. I don't think that
Saw Saturday's social link in Bakayoko. So, not sure.
You know what's funny? I actually would not be opposed to, like, just getting, like,
we talked about him.
A shitty, pacey right winger. Like, if it's someone that's just, like, so not this person, but if it was, like, someone like an Adama Traore type where it's just, like, I, like, roll my eyes and it's like, oh, my God. Like, if I'm the opposition, I'm like, oh, my God. I thought I was going to play against Bukayo Saka today, and now I got to freaking deal with this dude who's just doing everything. Like, basically what Jeremy Doku actually is for City, but people think he's not. Like, something like that. Like, where it's just like, oh, my God, this guy's going to be running at me. This guy's going to be pressing me. This guy is going to be in my face the whole day. It's going to be freaking annoying. Like, just that kind of a right winger. Like, I don't need freaking, Kvaratskhelia to come in and challenge Bukayo Saka for a starting spot. Like, I need someone that... Which probably
because it's not going to happen.
I was about to say, because that honestly is probably our best case scenario, because everyone knows if they come to Arsenal and they're a right wing player, they should know that they're not going to be a starter. So maybe for some players, it's like this can be a weird stepping stone where it's like I've at least shown I can do it in a sub capacity at a club like Arsenal. So maybe that will propel me to get a move like Brighton. Where Brighton will be like, oh, that guy played. Yeah, that guy played well for Arsenal, in limited minutes. So maybe if he got full minutes for a club like us, maybe not like that exact club, but a club of that level, or maybe like a Bundesliga club, like like maybe even a Dortmund, would be like, oh shoot, we could make this guy into something. I saw your boy, by the way, get a brace yesterday. So.
I was going to say, Dortmund's found their savior. Although, I will take the slight L.
Jamie Bino Gittins is, by the way, we were talking about, if you guys don't know.
Well, he changed his name. Which is my favorite thing. He's now just Jamie Gittins. Which I got to say, doesn't quite have the same ring to it.
So he did the anti-Bobby Dick Cordova Reed?
Yeah.
He used to just be Bobby Reed?
Yeah, he did. He pulled the Memphis Depay where it's like, I'm just Memphis. Got it.
The Virgil jump.
Yeah, yeah, but hey, he's been the savior for that. I was gonna make sure to mention to him before we moved on.
Yeah.
But he's looked good.
All right. So now we are going to get into our college football topic. All right. I've actually kind of been keeping up with college football throughout the summer and into this. I watched the game yesterday, the Florida State game, which was
Did you actually?
pretty hilarious. Because Florida State to me is kind of now in that class of like SC, Notre Dame. Texas luckily has removed themselves from that class in recent years of just like big football schools that just really aren't shit in the modern day.
I mean, they did go undefeated last year. I mean, that's...
I must have missed the part where they didn't lose their bowl game by 533 points.
Sorry. You're right. Their fifth string quarterback did lose in the bowl game by 70. So, but I'm just saying, like the other teams that you mentioned would kill, like they'd kill a distant relative to have the season that Florida State just had.
Oh, and by the way, Virginia Tech, you guys are in there as well. So
yeah, y'all are on fraud watch. And then they've been on it though.
I have to hear every year when they start off 2-0. Oh shoot, is Tech gonna win the ACC? No.
It's Tech versus Miami for the August national championship.
Chill on Miami. All right, they actually might win the ACC this year.
Hey, from what I've heard, they're going to be solid. You follow it. You seem like you've been way more locked in than I have.
My boy Joel Klatt has been keeping me plugged in.
I don't know if that's good or bad.
If you need a good college football piece to listen to, always listen to my boy Joel Klatt. So it just got me thinking when I was thinking about this upcoming season. Me and Chad grew up really, really enjoying college football. Like, from the time Chad was probably like late elementary school up through when Chad was in high school. So probably like 2005-ish time to about 2015. 16, 15, 16 was when we were both really, really into it and really cared. And so I was just thinking, like, which one's better? All right. So I just threw up a couple, like three main differences between the old NCAA football and new NCAA football. Real life, not like the games. So the BCS system, all right, having the bowls like the Fiesta Bowl and the Cotton Bowl and all these other bowls, but there's being one BCS national championship where they pick and there's one game where the BCS rankings come out and they do all these computer polls and all these everything that combines together to make our national championship, all right, and along with that, no legal payment of players, which added a cool bit of like controversy when stuff would come out, stuff like Reggie Bush getting paid and Johnny Manziel like signing autographs and getting paid like a couple $1,000s. Cam Newton also had a scandal that never really truly got proven, but I read up on that the other day. Of course, probably the most infamous one is the SMU case, which is before the BCS era, but is still representative of that old era, where they had their entire football program shut down in the late 80s, early 90s because they kept violating payment rules over and over again. And then also the traditional conferences, the Power 5 conferences, where there's the SEC, the Big 10, the Big 12, the Pac-8, then Pac-10, then Pac-12, and then the SEC. All,
Just quick moment of silence for the Pac-12.
Oh, whoa, wait. What do you mean?
My bad. The two teams, Washington State and Oregon State, keeping it alive.
Yeah, exactly. So, like, the traditional Power Fives and then really fun Group of 5 teams. I felt like every year, that was the thing that Chad, I feel like, always would tether himself to, is like, what Group of 5 team am I going to love this year?
Hawaii kind of then passed the baton to Boise State.
West Virginia had that run in there.
In a weird way, TCU had a run before they got to the Big 12. They had a good 3 or 4
when they were Mountain
run.
West.
Yeah, and with a couple different like teams too, like different quarterbacks. So they're like, oh, this is fun.
Rutgers, I think, had a year in there where they went like undefeated or something.
Yeah,
like that.
one loss. I think they were one loss. That was like the same year as West Virginia. I think the year you're talking about, 2007, got to be one of the craziest college football seasons. I think Pitt, Rutgers, and West Virginia all were like number 1 or 2 in like a 4-week span, and they all blew it.
For those of you that didn't watch college football back then, this is going to blow your mind. There was the last Big 12 game of the season was between Missouri in Kansas that year, and the winner of that game was supposed to go to the national championship.
Yeah.
Legitimately.
I know.
And then, of course, they rigged it so that LSU could get the national championship. But that's neither here nor there.
They won it. So they rigged it that bad.
That's kind of the representation of the old system. The new system, obviously, and now very, very new with the 12-team playoff. Before we had the 4-team playoff for about a decade. We had the 4-team playoff. Now we have the 12-team. NIL, where it's like you can pay. I honestly don't even know what the NIL rules are, but bottom line is players can get very publicly paid. Exactly. And schools can help to have that happen.
The quarterback and wide receiver from, I think it was Western Michigan or something, can openly say we gave up $500,000 to go or to stay at whatever school they're at, which I'm like, I gotta say, whoever your financial advisor is definitely kicking themselves right now for you making that decision. But hey,
well, it's more just like wicked work, because it's not like you're giving up $500,000 to stay at Georgia.
Yeah, exactly.
It's like, I'd rather stay here and win national championships and go pro. It's like, no, dude, you're going to Western Michigan.
Yeah.
But
Western Union.
It's neither here nor there. So 12-team playoff, NIL, and now the era of the Super Conference. All right, we have 17 teams in the ACC. If you guys don't know what ACC stands for, it's the Atlantic Coast Conference. So, of course, SMU in Dallas, Texas is in there. All right.
No. The best is they're called the Atlantic Coast Conference, and they have 2 teams on the Pacific Coast in the conference.
Oh, yeah. Isn't Stanford in the ACC?
Stanford and Cal, yeah.
Yeah.
That's just,
that's good. A joke. 16 teams in the Big 12. Quick maths. Okay.
Including Arizona and Arizona State, newest members.
And then Colorado also just rejoined. 18 teams in the Big 10. And then 16 teams in the SEC with the new additions of schools like Texas and Oklahoma. So, let me let you go first. All right, what your opinion is? What is college football in a better place now? Because honestly, objectively, it's more popular as far as like the money that's being thrown into it and the money it's generating. But what is your opinion on this new system versus the old one?
All right, so I'll hit 2 of the topics kind of quickly just because I think I think we'll probably end up agreeing on all 3 of the kind of mini segments of it. But the paying of players, I think it should have been legal for a long time. I'm glad that it's happened. Like you said, we're kind of still in that era of like, I don't even know what it really means. Like, there are numbers being floated out, but then it's like, hey, is the guy truly making that, or is it, that if you kind of do this, and this, stay all 4 years, or
and
whatever.
From what I understand, it's not even getting paid from the schools. It's just like the school kind of helps them get like a Raising Cane's
the school really facilitates the companies that they then end up doing the deals with. That's the part of it that I do think is bullshit, is the NCAA wants to pat themselves on the back, but they haven't still given up $1 out of their pockets for the players, and that's the part where it's like, at what point does the NCAA have enough money? I would love to see how much money Mark Emmert is, the president, I think the former president of the NCAA, because I don't think he's there anymore, was making, on a yearly basis. And every year it's, we don't have enough money, and other people have done this rant, so I don't want to make it too long, but at what point is enough money? Like, until you give a dollar amount that is like, all right, if we get to this, then the NCAA will start coming out of pocket to pay the employees that are bringing in these billions of dollars. Right. And as you said, the sport's kind of even growing now, even if it's in an era that we may not like. The sport overall is growing significantly. So I do have I guess I'm happy the NIL is there, but I still don't think that it's progress. It's progress, but it's like you said, it's not where it should be at all. And then the super conference thing, I'll just be real easy with this one. I hate it. I just hate it. Like, I was before the season, I think I had a conversation with you where I was like, you know what, I'm contemplating getting into college football this year. Like, I think I might, I've been off for about 3 to 4 years, really since LSU won the title in 21, I think it was. Or when was that? Yeah, in 20. Yeah, in 20. Ever since then, I've kind of been like...
Mickey Mouse ring that they won.
Nah, chill. This was pre-COVID. That was pre-COVID. COVID started in March. This championship happened in January.
I wouldn't know.
But like in the past couple years, I've just been like, all right. And then I was like, okay, let me get into it. And I look at the conferences and saw that SMU is in the ACC, and I was like, never mind. Like, I'm good. Like, I'm good. And the thing that made it the worst is there is actually a conference tracker on ESPN.com. Like, not NBA, they've got a free agent tracker. NFL, they've got a waiver / who's holding out tracker. In college football, they have a tracker so you know what conference the team you're rooting for is in. What the hell? Like, when you're to that point, that's when I just feel like it's too much, you know? Right. It's too much, and I'm not going to sit here and blame. There's not like one specific person to blame because all the conferences just want to go to their TV partners and be like, hey, we're expanding, give us more money. And look, like a lot of problems, sports, non-sports, it can all just be tracked back to money and greed and all that shit, which is the main reason for it.
It'll imprison us all, greed will.
That is what, what was his name? I can't even remember.
Ricky Tan?
Yeah.
Oh, no.
No.
Stephen Rain.
Oh, Stephen Rain. Yeah, because Ricky Tan. If you know, you know. Shout out Rush Hour 2. But yeah, I did greed, and the super conference thing I think is just a joke. You know, you don't have that identifiable, the characteristics that you had back in the day. You know, I think the SEC has still maintained their identity for the most part. Mm-hmm. Just because of the teams. I mean, when you add Texas and Oklahoma to a conference that was already considered the best conference, no one's going to be mad at it. And geographically, it kind of makes sense, I guess. And then the Big 10, Big 12, ACC, those conferences, they've just added teams and changed in ways where it's like you can't really identify what they are anymore. Like, you know, we talked a second ago about Pitt, West Virginia, Rutgers. That was the old Big East days. The Big East doesn't even exist anymore as a football conference. So it's crazy. I'm not a fan of the super conference, but I know I'm just old when it comes to that.
So the two defenses I've heard for some of the things that you're saying is, number one, there's going to be more good games, which is true. Because a lot of times...
And fundamentally, as a sports fan, that's what I like. So, to be fair, I have to...
Because you would see for the most part, every big school, big school, in the modern day, like an Oregon, a Georgia, a Texas, they would have the one big game a year where they in the week 1, week 2, week 3, something like that. It'd be Texas, Georgia, or it'd be Alabama, Michigan, or something like that. They'd have their one game, and then they'd have 2 cupcake games, and then they'd have their conference games, where even half of those would probably be considered cupcake games when you're playing Vandy, when you're playing against,
whoa.
when you
come to our house, you know what time it is.
We're going to show you how to play some SEC ball. like that kind of stuff.
Theoretically, we are next.
You'd have those, and so it's basically be you're playing basically 4 big games a year. If you're Alabama, it's you're playing in the Iron Bowl. You're playing that one big out of conference game. And then you're playing against whoever else is good in the conference that year, whether it be,
it's going to be LSU.
Well, you guys are probably going to find a way to steal a national championship here in the next 2 or 3 years, because you guys will have had your 6 years off. So that's number one, more good games, and number two, which is a big proponent. What my boy Joel Klatt is a big proponent of is he's look, now it actually matters, because if you're again a fan of a SEC school, a Big Ten school, whatever school, once you lose that first game, it's already dang, our season might be over, and then you lose that second game, it's dang, our season's definitely over. But now it's hey, we're 8-3, but if we win this last game in the conference, we could still find a way to sneak in as a 12 seed or as an 11 seed or something like that, because our 3 losses are against, I'm in the SEC and my 3 losses are against Texas, Alabama, and Georgia. I don't think they're going to dock me for that, so I might still sneak in, and I get that, I really do. I'm going to touch on that a little bit more when I get into my opinion. Actually, let's just get into that, okay? Into my opinion on it. Yeah, because absolutely. I think the culture of the country has changed, which has ruined the old format for the modern day. Okay, I think when people are talking about even old basketball players, man, this guy dragged his team to the conference finals. This team dragged his team through round 1, and now it's people like me and you who respect LeBron and stuff like that, like last year, not this past year, but the year before, it's like, man, I can't believe we got to the Western Conference Finals with this team. That's crazy. There's everyone else is like, yep, another title that he didn't win. It's like, what do you mean? Are you serious right now? You're just, and so I think that kind of ruined it a little bit, where it's like, it's either I win the national championship or our season sucked. Okay, and people also kid themselves into wanting fairness. It's like, oh, it isn't fair that UCF didn't get to play for the national championship in 2017. Oh, it isn't fair that TCU didn't get to play for the national championship in 2010 when they both went undefeated.
Yeah.
Is it also not fair that the best team that TCU played all year was Utah?
Yeah.
And the best team that UCF played all year was, I don't even know who was in their conference. I honestly couldn't even tell you who was in the American at the SMU.
Yeah, I think.
Is that fair?
That was their big game.
Where Alabama, like the schools I just talked about, Alabama had to play Auburn and had to play, LSU. That's fair, but UCF can be like, oh, well, we're undefeated. Like, that's not fairness. And people only find, again, that joy in the national championship. One of the coolest moments in modern college football history is the Fiesta Bowl, when Boise State beat Oklahoma with the Statue of Liberty play. And people after that, at that time, weren't like, man, Boise State had an awesome season. They deserved to be called national champions. It was just like, man, they had a great season, group of 5 team, awesome. They got to play in a BCS bowl game, and they won it. And they really showed everyone that they can, do X, Y, or Z. All right? And then opt-outs have also taken the fun out of it, because it's like, again, those national championship games are the only games that matter. It's like, if we're not playing for national championship, I'm not playing. And so that kind of robs a lot of people of that joy. It robs people of that joy, because it's like, shit, even when Texas beat Georgia in the Cotton Bowl a couple years ago with Sam Ehlinger.
We're back game.
The we're back game, and then we went like 8-4 the next year. It's like, I mean, we beat Georgia, but even me as a Texas fan, like, part of me took pause and I was like, but I mean, what does that even mean? Like, did all of Georgia's players really play, or were they even like, did they even care? And did, like, all this other stuff. Whereas before it had been like, oh my God, we just beat Georgia, who almost made it to the national championship. We just beat them in the freaking Cotton Bowl.
Yeah, the New Year's Six bowl games have turned into the Community Shield, where if you win it, it's the greatest game of all time. Yeah, I mean, really, it is. Because of,
it's a tryout, like you said, unless your team wins it, and then it's like, oh, we're nice.
Yeah, and I mean, this gets into another point that you didn't hit on, or that you didn't kind of list out, but the transfer thing is out of control. And like, look, as I said, I'm more pro player than I feel like I'm giving off. Like, guys should be able to get paid. Guys should be able to go where they want to go and play for where they want to play, because the coaches are allowed to do so. Like, whatever the coaches have to deal with, I feel like, or whatever the coaches are allowed to do, I feel like the players should be allowed to do as well. But then it gets to this point where it's like, one of the greatest points he brings up with sports is, you don't fall in love. A lot of times you don't necessarily fall in love with the sport. You fall in love with the people behind the story. And in college football now, like back in the day, it'd be like you said, maybe a guy towards the end of his freshman or sophomore season, depending on how good the team is, starts getting a little bit of playing time, and then going into the next year, you're like, man, I can't wait to see such and such blossom.
That was Colt McCoy for me. Like, Vince Young was the quarterback, and I think the next year, I don't even think Colt McCoy started, and then it's like he starts playing, and I was like, oh my God, this Colt McCoy guy is pretty good.
I'll never forget Leonard Fournette, the hype around him going into his sophomore year, because he was like one of the all-time recruits, and then had a so-so freshman year, but had a great bowl game, had an amazing bowl game against, and had a good end of the season, had a really nice game against Texas A&M to end the year, had 2 touchdowns. And then going into that next year is like, man, Fournette, could he get the Heisman? Could he get the Heisman? And then the first 5 games of the year, he ran for like 1,100 yards, and it was like, this is exciting. This is what college football is about. Like, this is, that you're getting to know a character and all that. And then it's funny that I use him as the option, because he kind of did the full circle thing, where then he was the first guy to opt out for the bowl game and all that stuff.
Was it him and McCaffrey? Him and someone else, yeah.
Yep, him and McCaffrey. And I think McCaffrey actually opted out of like a New Year's bowl game, or like one of the ones that still technically counted at that time. Because the LSU one, I think that was, as we joke, we compete for a title once every 8 years, and then the other 7 were like 8-4. People are like, oh, they still got talent though. So it was one of those years.
To be fair, I did enjoy those two opt-outs because Tim Tebow almost had an aneurysm on national TV when it happened. Like, this dude would literally do anything to be a college football player again so he could actually be relevant. And then it's just like, I can't believe you're giving up a chance to play for your school.
I got to say, so this is funny, but Fournette, definitely a better pro career than Tim Tebow, right? I mean, Tim Tebow was really a starter for like a year.
I mean,
so I'm just trying to figure out.
Is this a part of a larger point, or
no? I'm just curious.
Yeah, definitely.
Like, it's just funny because like the guy, kind of it's a lot like politics, but where the people on the extreme ends of each of it, you can have them. Like the people who are just so college, the Dickie V, the Jay Billis, the Tim Tebows, you can have them. The
Reese
people on
Davis.
this end, the Jay Williams, the people like that who are just like, oh, players should be running the whole league, and it's like, all right, like I'm good on that, but like, so and that's another thing. I feel like both of those sides have gotten stronger over the past couple of years with all these changes. Like it a lot like politics now, where people I feel like are just getting further and further apart on the spectrum compared to actually being able to see each other's point of view, which I don't think happens anymore.
It's always funny when people say stuff about it because it's like, I think it sounds good out of their mouth, but then when you think about it for 5 seconds,
how it would work.
Yeah, it's like, well, shouldn't players be free to do whatever the coaches do? And it's like, well, yeah, but also like this school is literally paying for your education.
Yeah,
like this school is literally paying Not even in that specific case, but it's like, shouldn't the players be able to choose? Shouldn't they be able to? It's like, even just like from a personality standpoint, like guys I want on my team, it's like, I mean, I like guys that are going to fight through the adversity and not just be like, oh, screw it. I went to Texas, didn't work out. Now I'm going to SMU. That didn't work out. Now I'm going to Texas State, and that's working out a little bit better. If I do better at Texas State, then I'm going to transfer over to Auburn, and then I'm going to, since I redshirted one of those years, if I play well at Auburn, I think I'm going to transfer over to another Power 5. And it's like, well, what did you even work? Did you work for anything? And then these guys get to the NFL, and it's like, hey, you're on your team. It's like, bro, then I didn't get the system that I wanted.
Yeah.
All right, Justin Fields.
It's like it's like everyone compared to their boss, right, at work, where your boss, you versus your boss have different structures which you have to follow, different codes of conduct, things like that, like different work stuff that happens. These college football coaches have put in years and years and years, most of them probably like 15 years being some bullshit video coordinator, assistant,
quality
or
control
whatever.
coach.
Yeah, quality control coach at Cardinal Direction State,
and not getting
for
paid.
7 years.
Yeah,
making
volunteer
$25,000.
position.
Yeah, and then you hit it big and you become the assistant secondaries coach making $25,000 after 9 years of doing it. So like, and then the players, like you said, 18, 19 comes in and you're just like, hey, like,
where's mine?
And I don't even fully blame the players because it's a culture where athletes, a lot of times, like their lives growing up, they've probably been used to that where it's like, hey, I just want this, this, and this, and they're like, okay, that's what you got. Hey, I want to, I'm in high school. I'm going to go to these 3 classes, these other ones, nah, forget that. Hey, coach, I'm going to play this game, and this game, and I'm going to sit out this one. Okay, go ahead, do that. Hey, coach, I don't feel like practicing today. All right, fine, just show up for the game. Like, all that is just kind of culminating into this world of college football because now at this level, it's nationalized. You can kind of see what everyone's doing, and it's bringing the community really to light, what people are getting away with from ages 14 to 18 because they can excel at something, then at 19 to 22, you put them on a spotlight and it's just like, kind of gives you a headache.
Yeah, exactly. So in conclusion, the BCS era was from 1998 to 2013, but I think the true peak of college football for me personally was like that 2004, 2005 range to about when Johnny Manziel went into the draft.
Yeah, like 2011.
Like that first playoff was truly electric. It was awesome. What was that? Was that that was the
Florida State? Yeah, Florida State, Oregon.
Yeah, Florida State, Oregon, and then
Ohio State over Alabama.
Yeah, exactly.
Game.
So like that was an awesome year, and it was something new. But for me personally, I always prefer the BCS era, except So I've been playing NCAA football '08 recently on the original Xbox, and there's been a couple of years where I've been a Power 5 team going undefeated, and we didn't get a bid to the national championship. But it's neither here nor there.
Really? Okay, I do have one argument though, or one not argument, but one thing I do want to break down, just because people are so like you said, playoff. Everyone should get a chance. Everyone should get a this. I really feel like the 14 playoff has been a failure. Like when you look at
whoa, Cincinnati.
That's the thing. In the entire history of the college football playoff, there's been one Group of 5 team that was in a championship, or that was in the playoff. Sorry, and that was Cincinnati. The year they got housed by Bama, 27-6. In the history of the college football, or in the history of the BCS era, there was only one time a non-power conference team made the championship game, and that was Bama. That was Notre Dame when they got housed by Bama, the Manti Te'o Bowl. And so I just feel like when you talk about the inclusion part of it, where it's like, oh, we just want everyone to get included. One, that's an illusion because it's still just 2 conferences eating up a whole bunch of bids, and then the rest of it is like, hey, it's like, all right, SEC gets 2 teams, Big Ten's definitely going to get a team. All right, so 120 teams or 115 teams are fighting for one spot going into the season.
Yeah,
so it's not really any different than what the college or than what the BCS was. I mean, BCS, you had 11 SEC teams make championship games, 7 Big 12 teams make championship games. The other power conferences combined, and we're talking about 4 power conferences then with the ACC, Big East, Big 10, Pac-12. They only combined for 10 appearances total. Mm-hmm. So like that's versus now in the playoff, SEC and Big 10 combined for 21 appearances. ACC, Big 12, Pac-12 combined, 16. Mm-hmm. Like so the diversity is not there in the way that people wanted it to be there, and also the games have just been fucking horrible. Like the games have just
the
been
semifinals
terrible.
Last year were probably as good as it got.
I'll give you this: the last 2 years, the semifinals have been good, but then the funny thing is, the championship has been blowouts each of the last 2 years.
Wait, you didn't like that TCU game?
I mean, that was the closest college football semifinal ever. Georgia over Ohio State by a point. TCU over Michigan in double overtime. And then Georgia houses TCU 65-7. I know you know this, but I went through it. Of all the years, of the 10 years of the college football playoff, there have been 8 exciting games. 8 games that have been within 2 touchdowns. So I'm not even saying exciting. Yeah, or no, out of the 10, or out of the 20, sorry. 8 out of the 20, and that sounds like, oh man, that's really good. It's been all 4 games in the last 2 years. So for the first 8 years of it, there was like 1 good game every 2 years. Like that's not, and part of it has to do with the insane runs that Alabama and Clemson have been on kind of in the beginning of the playoff era. So it was like no one could even touch them really from like 16 to 20. Or
even for those, really. It was like the playoff was kind of a hassle. Everyone was like, we know Alabama and Clemson are the 2 best teams
it was a formality,
country, but we have to play this.
It was the equivalent of the Warriors and Cavs kind of those 4 years where it was like, all right, I guess we got to play these 3 rounds.
But we got to play Toronto.
Uh-oh, Indiana's going to a Game 6 against Cleveland. Let's see what happens.
Yeah.
So I don't think we solved anything, but I just feel like college football is, for us, is not as enjoyable now, even though I understand how the commoditization, if that's even a word, is at a higher level now than what it was when we were truly in love with it.
Right. All right, so let's get into our last topic now, which is some soccer versus NBA comparisons. All right, could be a player, a team, a coach, or something. All right, but of course I took that and I did all players and coaches. No, I did one player. So player, and then player coach. The second one is the one I'm more proud of. All right,
okay.
But I'm gonna start off with not that one. I'm gonna start off with Neymar and KD. Okay.
God.
And here's my case.
Out with some doozies.
Here's my case. fantastic players that are also great entertainers. All right.
Yep.
People love to laugh at KD, and people love to watch Neymar do his freaking like rainbow flicks and stuff. Was able to establish themselves as one of the best, even at a very young age. Neymar got that huge move to Barca at 21 years old. And even before that, he was like in the Ballon d'Or race when he was playing for Santos. KD, same thing. He walked into the league, instantly started scoring 20, and was in the finals by the time he was like 22-ish.
Yeah, yeah.
They both won titles as a part of an amazing team, but they were never truly the guy on that team.
Yeah.
It was always still Steph's team, and it was obviously always still Messi's team. I mean, you could argue that it was more Suarez's team than Neymar's team.
Yeah.
I don't know if you can make the argument that it was more Draymond's team than KD's team, but point still stands. Think so. And they both left that team in order to win on their own, but they have never been able to. Moved multiple times too, both of them. KD went to the Nets and now the Suns. And Neymar then went to
Al Hilal,
PSG and Al Hilal. He's had a great Al Hilal career so far.
He's only played like 50 minutes for them. He was a €100 million transfer.
And then, despite their greatness, you still feel like there was another level for them to reach that they never quite achieved. You really thought that Neymar and KD would break in and probably be 2 of the 10 best players of all time. And me and you have talked before, and I acknowledge Neymar's excellence for the Brazilian national team, but he's won the Confederations Cup.
Yeah.
And his numbers and what he's done for Brazil cannot be understated. He's been remarkable. He's their all-time leading scorer. He's performed at every big tournament that he's played in. But it's kind of like what Messi was after the 2014 World Cup, where it's like, yeah, he was amazing and he won the Golden Ball and all this stuff, but he still didn't win, so there's still a part of it that's missing. That's kind of what Neymar has been, and it's kind of what KD is too. It's like, yeah, you won these titles, you've done these things, but I feel like you should be part of that top 10 of all time based on what you were doing so early in your career. So that's my case. Why am I wrong? Go.
Well, I'll give you this. One, I feel bad when I'm going to make mine because you put way more thought into it and you're using much heavier hitters than what I used on mine. So I feel ashamed when I even offer mine up. But I think you made a hell of a case. And the thing that you left out, but I think you definitely agree with, that you definitely would agree with, is when you talk about people who kind of played in the same era as them or played with them, or even like the younger guys that are coming up, they always look at them as like, in that category, like you said about top 10 or like greatest ever. Like so many, high school, college basketball players, guys come into the draft, they're like, oh, who do you compare your game to? KD. Man, KD's the greatest. Anthony Edwards, prime example. KD's the greatest player of all time. Obviously not true, but like, you would never hear someone say that about like a Steph Curry. Like you would never hear any current player really, or any up and coming guy be like, Steph's the greatest player of all time. Even though if you talk to anyone that really knows the game, Steph is definitely a better player than Kevin Durant all time. He's higher up on any pyramid all time than him, no doubt about it. The same thing with Neymar. People are like, oh man, Neymar's the best. Neymar's the greatest ever. There are other guys who, I'm trying to think of. I mean, like a Lewandowski was definitely more consistent than Neymar. Obviously, different positions. Or like even a Salah. I'll say Salah, definitely more consistent, way better player. But you would never hear anyone be like, oh, Mo Salah is the greatest player of all time, or nothing like that. People just don't talk about him in that way. Versus like, I don't want to use the word of the summer, but they have this aura where just people are like in love with them, and it almost exaggerates even more the very dominant skill set that they already have.
Right.
And that's the other thing. When you talk about just straight up skill set, they're at the peak, highest level, right? And when it comes to dribbling, creating, I think Neymar is at that highest level. When it comes to isolation, scoring, getting a bucket, KD's at whatever the highest level in NBA
you could even argue
is.
very similar, player types for what they. It's like Neymar's like, give me the ball
Dominant
and get out of the way,
players.
and then KD's like, give me the ball and it's automatic 2 points.
Yeah, just dominant offensive players, no doubt about it. So I think KD's better defensively though than Neymar. He doesn't track back enough as we've seen at PSG.
Yeah, so the whole thing fell apart because the whole comparison fell apart because Neymar's defensive work rate wasn't good enough.
I like it. Like I said, I like it, and you put a lot of really good thought into it.
Well, then you're really gonna hate me on the next one, then. But
I'm gonna just go ahead and throw out my appetizers. I have 2 players as well, and then I have a team one. My player one, I told you one of these I came up with as I was watching yesterday. John McGinn and Patrick Beverley. Just fucking annoying. Just hate them both. But
my
the thing
favorite moment of the season so far,
yeah,
definitely when Ben White just booted the ball right in John McGinn's chest yesterday.
Well, and it was just bullshit when it was the Saliba kick and he kicks the ball right into him, and then it's like, what did I do? And it's like, dude,
It's a
just
little like
yeah, exactly.
Innocent
and
rat face.
And the thing is, like, nowhere near good enough to actually justify the level of arrogance that they have. But then you look at it and it's like, damn, he's actually like an important contributor on a really good team.
Dude, when
So,
he
like,
plays for Scotland, I'm like, well, shit, they got John McGinn.
yeah, exactly.
Like, in my head, I'm like, dude, they got like a guy or two because they got John McGinn.
Exactly. Like when you're going through the international rosters of like, all right, who could pull an upset or something? You're like, all right, who does this team have? And you're like, John McGinn goes in that category. Like he does, but he's still not on the level of like, you know, talking the way he being a captain of a Champions League squad. Like he's just not that good. Mm-hmm. He's a fine player, but he's just not to that level. Patrick Beverley, I mean, the dude has a fucking podcast and was probably like not even in the top 200 in scoring this past season. So I just, and both just super annoying. And like I said, they're always hitting them with the what did I do? I'm just playing. Yeah. And with McGinn, it's kind of been like 2 years now where I've just seen it, and it's just super annoying. So that comparison might have been the culmination of like 2 years of frustration. So, but where do you seem to at least enjoy that one, even if you don't agree with it?
No, I definitely like it. I think I also like the fact that neither of them really they never really
accomplished anything.
Yeah, they never really had
shit.
that like true accomplishment where it was like, oh, John McGinn won the FA Cup that one year, or Pat Bev was like the 8th man on like a title team that one year. Although Pat Bev almost had that because he got cut by the Heat. I think the year they won the title, the year they won their first.
That was
title
why they won it
with LeBron. And so I really enjoy that one. That's that makes me laugh because it's 2 players that I don't like.
I'm
gonna
do, and also just kind of one more thing that emphasizes it. Both of them turned into shithouses when they were originally when they came up. They were more like Patrick Beverley when he was in college was a 20-point scorer, which is always the funniest thing of all time.
Well, they became like NHL enforcers. They were like, okay, I'm not really truly good enough to be here, so I'm just gonna fight people.
But McGinn a couple years ago was like a creative number 10, and now he's just like a shithouse midfielder.
Yeah.
I'm gonna go ahead and do both of mine just back to back as the appetizer for yours.
Is this the half-baked one?
Yeah, this one was half-baked. I came up with this one actually probably right before we started, which is funny because you ended up mentioning this guy. Adama Traore and Jeff Green. Tantalizing figures. Guys who teams.
So does that mean that this is actually a triple comparison? It'd be Adama Traore, Jeff Green, and Jason Hayward. Chad texted me out the blue the other day saying, "Is Jason Hayward the Jeff Green of Major League Baseball?" I'm like, what the hell?
Well, because I got the announcement that he was designated for assignment, and so then I was like, I wonder what his career was up to. Because there are these guys him specifically, he was in that era where I kind of stopped watching baseball right when his career started, kind of. So, I'm familiar with him, but I never really know what his career was. So I was like, oh, let's take a look at it. And then I was like, damn, 220 to 270 hitter for most of his career. Maybe had 2 years where he hit a couple of homers. I remember when this dude was a legit prospect, player even with the Cubs. So it was just, that was the reason for that version. But yeah, the Adama Traore, Jeff Green.
I mean, that one's pretty 1-to-1.
Yeah, like I said, just so many teams have given that guy a chance, and every time a new coach is like, no. I remember, I think it was Bruno Lage when he came in as the Wolves manager, and he was trying to be creative, and people were like, nah, he's playing Traore on the left, so that way he has to cut in. and now we're gonna get the best version of him. I'm like, oh, are we? And he was probably like 2-2 for them or something like that. So.
Hey, that year he had like the loudest 3-3 that one year for Wolves.
And that's the other thing is like Jeff Green will have the loudest 3 20-point games in a season that anyone ever sees. He'll have the loudest dunks. I mean, he'll hit the 19-8 that he had for the Cavs in Game 7 against Cleveland or against Boston to send them to the finals. Like people still talk about that, and it was 19-8. You know, it ain't like he had 28
like he had
15.
50.
Yeah, like we were like, oh, LeBron needed that 19-8 from Jeff Green, and it's like, dude
had a fourth starter's average.
Yeah,
in a playoff game. It's legendary.
So and that's the other part of the comparison. So I feel like that one was kind of half baked, but I feel like I was pretty spot on.
Yeah, that one's very spot on. Blessed by physical gifts, and everyone just keeps trying to get them to add a little something, substance to their game, so that it's like, so I can play you because I really want to play you because your athleticism, but I can't because you're not.
The new team part I don't think can emphasize enough because every time it's like, man, no, we've got him. Like we got a system that'll work for him.
Also,
everyone for 5 years was like, man, Traore, if he could be a wingback under Conte, and it's like, dude, just give up. Like he's just not that player.
So this one is more of like an actual full career comparison between these two people.
I can't wait to hear this.
Steve Nash and Frankie Lampard.
Oh, wow, I don't know enough about Lampard's career, so I'm really gonna have to rely on you.
I did some deep dive research for this one. Okay,
to get that comparison, you had to.
Legendary players that went on to have weird coaching careers. Just weird. That's kind of like the tagline for it.
Yeah.
So they were both more slow burn careers. Lampard didn't get his big move to Chelsea until he was 23, which is pretty late in footballing terms, and didn't become an England regular until about 2003 to the 2004 Euros at age 25-26. That's when he started playing a lot of minutes for England. Nash didn't make an all-star game until he was 27 and didn't win MVP until he was 30. Lampard won Premier League Player of the Season once as a 27-year-old, similar to Nash's age at 30-31. You know, not obviously the same age, but, you know, later in their careers. Not like they're new players. And it's not like that's kind of prime age, but even some might say, especially this era, late prime age.
Yeah.
As coaches, Lampard had that one season where he finished fourth with the transfer ban that they brought two players in.
I was going to say transfer ban where they still were like the third highest spend in Europe.
Yeah. And where he played the kids, a.k.a. they had literally the most lucrative academy in the entire world, and now he was forced to play these guys all of a sudden.
Yeah. Got credit for giving Tim Abraham 30 starts.
Yeah, which was considered his accomplishment.
Yeah.
But again, not winning a title, not winning a trophy, not winning a whatever. All right, but that was considered his accomplishment. And then Nash was the coach when Katie had his foot on the line, which barely kept them from the conference finals. And you could argue, since the team that they lost to went on to win the title, some could now argue, you know, if they win that game, then they come up against Trae Young in the Eastern Conference Finals. Definitely not an unwinnable series. And then
the original Cole Palmer.
And then they go up against the Suns, who are also very beatable at this time. So people could say, hey, you know, it was an accomplishment because he went so far with the title team. He gave them their best series. And, you know, if literally one play went our way, we would be there. We would be them. And despite some small flashes of positive coaching, both are now out of coaching and considered to not be good enough for the top level after a brief stint in that upper echelon. Again, after that first year of Nash, it was like, okay, Nash, the Nets have their coach, they have their team, let's see what they can do with it, da-da-da-da-da. Same with Lampard. After they had that transfer ban, they're like, all right, so now we're done with the ban. We're done with all that stuff. We finished fourth last year. We're in the Champions League. Let's kick on. Let's kick on from here. And then he almost instantly got fired.
Yeah.
So
didn't even make it through the season.
Yeah, so it's like that slow burn career that was definitely filled with greatness. And, you know, Steve Nash is a Hall of Famer. He's an NBA top 75 player of all time. 2-time MVP, multiple-time All-Star, that kind of thing. And then Frank Lampard, in multiple Team of the Years, Player of the Season, only one time, which I thought was kind of surprising. But player of the
We'll
season,
be in the Premier League Hall of Fame.
Premier League Hall of Fame, all that stuff. And then as coaches, it was like, oh, okay, they had like a year or two where it's like, all right, they're a pretty legit coach. And now it's just like, nah. Everton even gave Lampard a chance just to make sure that he wasn't that guy.
Terrible.
So that one I was pretty proud of overall. I wanted to just touch on my half-baked one, which again, even this one I put in a little bit of effort into. And this one is for you because it combines two of your teams.
Who are the Wizards?
John Wall. This one's going to blow your mind. I think that you're going to be actually shocked by this one. And Marcus Rashford. Okay.
I don't hate it.
Both highly touted prospects that walked into the spotlight at an early age and were very good early.
Yeah.
I was looking at John Wall, and he basically instantly walked in the league and was like 18-9 or 18-8.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, cool. And then obviously Rashford, his first season, I think he scored like 11 goals in all competitions.
As like an 18-year-old or something.
Yeah, which was crazy. 3-year peak for John Wall. All right, he was 20-10 on 44% shooting. Of course, he's not a great shooter.
Right.
Mainly
his weakness.
Mainly scoring at the rim. All right, but that was kind of just before the time where the analytics kind of mattered.
Yeah.
And so
you can still get away with being a non-shooter.
Yeah, but 20-10 is like legit. Like averaging 10 assists in the NBA is legit, especially, no offense, on a team like the Wizards. All right, I didn't know this. Finished 7th in MVP voting in 2017. Whatever year was the Celtics year, the Celtics in the second round year.
Yeah, that was his best year easily.
3-time All-Star, All-Defense, All-NBA, third-team All-NBA all in that 3-year peak. All right, and this is 2014 to 2017, ages 24 to 26. Rashford, from 2018 to 2021, so those 3 seasons, all right, he was age 20 to 24. I know that sounds like a lot of years, but I think he has like an October birthday, so he kind of has a lot of years in there. He was 19 goals and 10 assists in all comps per season, which, again, is one of those stat lines where it's like, that's good, that's definitely good, but it's not like you're not going to blow... It's not blown away.
No one's talking about you as an all-timer with that.
Do you know how many times Marcus Rashford has been the Premier League team of the season?
Probably 0. Maybe
0.
1. Yeah.
And so I put this point in there as well. Rashford's career and talent may have been slightly overrated because of the Man United tax. And so I'm kind of taking that Man United big club part away, just saying what were their actual true careers? Not like how did it feel or what were they regarded as. I think that John Wall and Rashford were kind of on a similar scale, where it was like people in the NBA would be like, man, if John Wall could move to this club, they could do something, or to this team, that they could do something. If John Wall had one more piece, then they could do something. And they almost made it to a conference finals. And I think Rashford's kind of been a similar thing, where it's like he's never quite been at that top level of player, but everyone recognizes his talent, and he's a good player. When he was getting those PSG links, those heavy PSG links a couple years ago, that seemed like a good move, because his talent was there, but he just wasn't ever going to break through and be like the best player in the Premier League. I think their careers have had similar trajectories as far as quality, peak, and they've kind of fallen apart later in their career. I know Rashford had that season 2 years ago. And look, Rashford, they didn't line up timeline-wise, but Rashford is still fairly young. I think he's 26, 27?
Yeah.
Somewhere around there.
27 in October, yeah.
Yeah. And it's kind of been pretty inconsistent over the past 4 seasons. I mean, he had a poor season, then he had a really, really good season in, 2021 or 21-22?
Yeah, that first Ten Hag season.
Yeah, 21-22. And then the past 2 years, it's just kind of been a lot of hoping that he can get back to his form and people trying to get him back to his form, but he's found it difficult.
Yeah, I tell you, I'm actually kind of glad you did this one, because we didn't hit on United really. Not that I didn't really hit on United that much in the soccer part, but Rashford just looks like a different guy than what he was 2 years ago. Like, I was almost gonna say whatever the second act for Rashford is, kind of like you just alluded to with his age. Whatever the second act for him will be I would assume it would be more successful than. What are we talking? John Wall in Houston and with the Clippers?
Yeah.
But, honestly, I don't even know. I don't even know what the second act can look like for him.
It's not an impossibility that he could end up doing that. Rashford.
Yeah. Because I think he'll probably end up getting moved on this summer if and look, we're 2 games in, I get it, but he wasn't good last year either. And he doesn't bring a whole lot. Like, I think reminds me of John Wall in a way too, when he's very limited in the way he impacts the game. John Wall could not shoot at all. Marcus Rashford cannot create. Marcus Rashford is strictly a goal-scoring winger. John Wall is, I guess you consider John Wall maybe even more well-rounded just because he could at least score and distribute,
And defend.
Yeah. But Rashford, like, really, and 2 years ago when he had that season, I remember Van Straten was like, "Oh, all Rashford could do is score. He's still overrated." And I was like, "Dude, nah." And now I'm like, it's very true. Like, you watched it in that Brighton game, he didn't do shit. And then as soon as Garnacho comes on,
they score.
He instantly makes an impact, and then they score. And look, I'm not saying because Garnacho's on the field that allows Ahmad to have that huge deflection on the shot, but there was just a different spark, and you even saw it in the Fulham game in the opener. Like, so I think Rashford, I think that makes sense, especially
both very
considering
talented
Rashford,
physically. Rashford, lightning quick, strong,
yeah.
decent.
John Wall, same thing, speed.
Decent in the air. Yep, exactly.
Yeah. So I like
He's the
that.
fastest
like
guy out
that.
here. He has wheels. He doesn't have to settle for a jump shot.
Shout out Jalen Rose, man. Shout out Jalen Rose. Now I gotta say, you're 3 for 3 with those. You're good with that. You're good with that. I especially like the Lampard Nash one though. That one would be my number 1 if I had to give one.
All right, so we only have about 3-4 more minutes. Did you have a team one? Was I hearing that correctly?
Yeah, this one's probably the least finished article, which I just love that saying.
Just feels that way.
Yeah. Chelsea and the Brooklyn Nets. Now, this one's more because of a entertainment aspect, because there's like a 3-year run, kind of like you kind of alluded to in talking about Nash, where every week it was a soap opera, more so about what was happening off the court. We're bringing in Blake. We just signed LaMarcus Aldridge.
Kyrie's
James
taking
Harden
2 weeks
trade.
off.
Yeah, like just all that, kind of jumbled up into a snow globe. And then, oh, by the way, we actually, like you said, come within a shot of making the conference finals, where we're probably going to beat Brooklyn, or where we probably would have beaten Atlanta.
Mm-hmm.
But ultimately, not much after that. Swept by the Celtics in the first round, and then the other year, where they had all this stuff, was the COVID year, and they ended up not really even doing anything, didn't even make the playoffs in the bubble that year. Chelsea, obviously it's impossible to really compare any basketball team to Chelsea just because of the true amount of transactions that they have. But
if there is
Chelsea,
one, it was
yeah. Like that's the thing. Like, just the same thing. So much off the field is the headline and all this other stuff. Every time they win a game, it's the best win of all time. Every time they lose a game, it's the worst loss of all time. There's no in between. Like, and also I think that the other thing is Nash wasn't well liked, I think, as an NBA coach, and I don't think people have really liked the Chelsea managers. Like, the appointments have been head scratching. They're like, oh, I think Poch, a lot of people liked him, liked the appointment, even though I was never a fan of him. That's one that I don't even know if I can do a victory lap, because hell, they did finish 7th.
I'm a fan of him now.
Oh yeah, red, white, and blue. But like, just people always had thoughts about the coach, didn't really like him. Maresca, I don't think people are like, oh, all that stuff. So, like I said, not the perfect comparison, but just from an entertainment, off the field, off the court factor, I feel like those two have some kind of kinship. Maybe not brothers, maybe like cousins or something like that.
Cousins of each other. I like that.
Yeah, exactly.
So that wraps up our episode 4 for the Glue Guys podcast. I'm going to try to do a little bit more. I was marking some clips out as we were going through, trying to make it a little bit more accessible for you guys, so you can say, when are we talking about the Premier League? When are we talking about college football? When are we doing our comparisons? That kind of thing. But again, please, any suggestions down below. Are we going too long? Are we going too short? Are we covering the topics you guys want to talk about? Anything with the format or the topics or anything, please let us know. And we should be back next week, all right? Yeah. And, just, again, please reach out. Anything that we can do to make ourselves better, we would really enjoy that. But without further ado, we'll see you guys next week for episode 5.